And good morning, everybody from New York City, which is where I'm sitting, to wherever you are on this planet right now. Good morning, hello, good afternoon, just goodness wherever you are into your heart. It's wonderful to be with you on this 5th day of the Impossible Summit. It's so wild to think that tomorrow will be our last day of just this round. We want to thank you so much for joining us, for seeing the vision, for feeling your heart in this vision. And I promise you that today is going to be such a magical, special day. Before I continue with words, I felt moved on this beautiful Sunday just to send some melody into your hearts and into the ethers, and may it touch you wherever you may need some extra love, or you're feeling loving and you want to share some more love with someone else that you may know, or even the people that we don't know. May this energy of our connectivity touch their hearts and give them whatever they need. I just want to give thanks for a moment to all of my ancestors. We've been talking about ancestors a lot since the beginning of the summit on Wednesday, when Pacha called in the ancestors of his family down in Colombia. And if it weren't for our ancestors, none of us would be here today to be able to share our ideas, to pick up the torch, to move us forward just as they did. So I want to give thanks to my grandparents, my great-grandparents, my parents, my great-great-great-great-greats, as well as to all of your ancestors, and call them in at this time and just give thanks. Every generation has their turn. And thank goodness our ancestors did their turn so that it could be our turn. So thank you, Grandma and Grandpas. Thank you to all of your grandmothers and grandfathers. Thank you to the future generations who will be thanking us, so thank you too. It's so beautiful to feel chosen, isn't it? Even when sometimes it may feel like sometimes it's heavy, the light that comes through, it's worth every bit of standing for, loving for. So I want to welcome you to our 5th day of the Impossible Summit. Just a couple of announcements before we get started into speaking about impossible hope, which is embedded with impossible faith, as well as action, solutions for the next generation, led by our youth panel. I want to just give you a little bit of heads up for tomorrow. Tomorrow, we will be closing the Impossible Summit out in a very, very special way. Our normal presentation and workshop sessions will be used for sort of a workshopping, heart-sharing brainstorm session for us and our presenters and workshop leaders. That will happen at its regular time, 11:15 to 12:45 Pacific Standard Time. And we have 2 amazing women who will be leading that, Mila Elania and Celia Alario. 2 very special ladies. I want to give a shout out to those ladies for putting this container together so that we can come together and share our hearts and reflect upon how can we support each other more and what's in our hearts, and as a collective, as participants and presenters, to come together in this way of deep reflection. And then during our usual workshop session time, which is from 1:30 to 3, we're actually going to do a very special closing with our Indigenous elders. We have Edward Sparks, aka Ed Holypipe, Chanupa Wakan Hanka, Oglala Lakota of the Red Cloud family of Pine Ridge, South Dakota, joining us alongside Grandma Mona Ann Pulaka, who is Hopi Havasupai Tewa elder founding member of the International Council of Indigenous Grandmothers. And they're going to be doing a ceremony for us so that we can close this particular round of our time together. So I invite you to join us for that very sacred circle so that we can, just as we open together as a community, we can close together as a community. I'll be posting that Zoom link. We'll be using Zoom for those sessions right after I hop off and introduce our next panel. So I'll make sure to put that inside of the chat box. And so I'm very happy to introduce a very special person in my life who I had the honor to meet a few years ago, actually in Shanghai, where I live. And this person has become one of my closest and dearest friends in so many ways and has joined the team. He is one of the 5 who's really allowed us to really bring this Impossible Summit to you. His name is Noah LeBeau, and Noah, like the rest of my team, in just 4 weeks, we learned how to do all of this technology. We had no idea what we were doing, but we knew that we wanted to step in and create something special for our community of change agents. And so I'd love to introduce Noah to the stage. And what I love about him is so many things. Right now, he spends his time in positive psychology, mindfulness, and intuitive movement. And I love that he sits around and asks himself, what does a thriving life look like? He is an aspiring social worker, and he facilitates group empowerment work, and he curates experiences for personal transformation. And I can say that that's very true. When I was living in Shanghai, when he was there, I watched him pull together our community and get people to interact in deep, vulnerable, beautiful ways. So it is my pleasure to invite Noah up to the stage so he can bring his beautiful panel of young ladies, our future generation, so powerful to hear their voices. So I'm going to hop off. Welcome, Noah. Thank you for all that you do. I just love that you're here.
Love you too. Thank you. And can I have, ladies, all 3 of you join the screen? I want to introduce each one of you while everyone can see you. Hi, good morning.
Hi.
All right. So everyone watching, I am so excited and inspired to have just to be lucky enough to be sitting with the 3 of you. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with Naniesh. Naniesh is an Alaskan climate change activist, originally from the Dene and Gwich'in tribes of the Americas, and has been doing some really incredible work in Alaska, talking about climate change, how it's affecting herself and the people around her that she loves. And I saw that you got this Youth Spirit Award in Alaska, which I thought was so cool for your activism. And then let me also introduce Kaya and Lillian, Kaya Marbin and Lillian Ellis. Kaya and Lillian both live in the Bay Area and started a project called the Butterfly Effect. And I'm not going to get too much into that now. I'll allow them to explain it themselves, but they've been working to transform the lives of young people, young immigrants and migrants who have been held at the Mexican-American border. So welcome to the stage this morning, everyone. So glad to be here with you. Now, I want to just get kind of straight into this, but I think that the common story normally is probably, what are you doing now? What is the effect and the change you're trying to make? So let's take a second and step just a little bit further back. How did you first get involved? And I'd love to hear that story from each of you this morning. What was that first mover? Because all of us need that thing that calls us to action. And then maybe if you can go from that first mover to how you are doing the things that you're doing today. So Naniesh, I introduced you first. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with you as well. Can you remember what was that first mover that got you involved with activism, and how did you find yourself where you are today?
First mover. I feel like my parents really brought me into this, and they brought me into the world as well. So I'd say that was sort of my first step, I suppose. And all the love that they brought me up with and support, and taking me back to my homelands and letting me be surrounded by the beauty that my ancestors were in really, really made me full of love and hope and a need to protect it for the future generations.
If I can have you share a little bit on your story as well there. So you're filled with this love and this hope, which I think is an incredible place. And how does that experience move you into some of the activism and what you're doing today? And maybe explain a bit of what you're doing now.
So recently, me and a group of Alaska Native youth got together and wrote a resolution, and it was titled the Declaration for Climate Change State of Emergency of Alaska. And we brought it to the Elderton Youth Conference, which is a conference that goes on in Alaska where we have all the different regions of Alaska come together and talk about issues that we're facing in our community in hopes to find solutions as a whole. And so while I was at this conference, I took a workshop on resolution making. And me and my friends, who are all very passionate about the environment and our homelands and change, we together and we wrote this resolution. And it was difficult, but it was really it was a good experience. And so we got it onto the floor of this conference, and there was a lot of debate that happened, and a lot of people were trying to change the resolution or different statements, but we didn't let it change, and it passed on the floor, and that was a huge moment for a lot of people, which I didn't realize was so huge then, I think, because I was just sort of shocked from debating on this floor for an hour. Yeah. And then it happened, and I got so much love, and that has fueled me. It's also been draining because it's hard work, but and just the feedback and the just knowing that if I keep doing this, that if all of us youth keep doing this and working together, we can make change. And that was a big booster.
That's beautiful. And man, there's a ton of themes there that I want to touch on. But let's get to Lillian and Kaya. Lillian, could I start with you? What do you remember as, kind of your first mover thing that you asked me this morning? Noah, were you always an activist? I'm curious, how did you start, Lillian? And then how has that led you to some of the stuff you're working on now?
I totally agree, actually, because I also started with my family. We, of course, like my family, I just grew up in a family with musicians and educators and sociologists. And so it was always really open conversation about like the world and what's really going on everywhere. And so I was raised that way.
Yeah.
And then the first thing that I really did was, my mom's a musician, and so she has a lot of musician friends. One of them, who is Rhonda Benin, and she does a Women's History Month show called Just Like a Woman. And she asked me to sing on her show, and I said yes. I was 8 at the time, I'm pretty sure. And so I sang on that. My mom posted on Facebook, and then Caitlin and Tommy from the Alphabet Rockers saw it. The Alphabet Rockers are a socially conscious hip hop group for kids and families. And so they asked me to come sing on their album Rise Shine #Woke, and I went on that, and that grew to be a huge thing. It got nominated for a Grammy, and that was definitely a huge part of like my activism, because I really wouldn't be here if it weren't for like that show leading to the Alphabet Rockers. And then, actually, Caitlin McGaw is married to Adi Nagraj, who is Kaya's uncle. So that's how me and Kaya met.
Wow.
And we didn't really bond at first, I guess, but we did like have a play date because we kind of were like, maybe something could happen. And then my mom found this thing on Facebook where this kid in Texas had done a hot chocolate stand and raised $5,000 for Trump's wall. And me and my best friend Lauren, we didn't really like that idea, and so we decided to do something of our own when we started Hot Chocolate for Peace. Lauren's family owns a churro cart, and they sell a bunch of stuff. But for the event, we did hot chocolate, Mexican hot chocolate, and churros. And we did it for donations, and we've raised over $13,000 for Raices Families Together Fund. And they are doing a lot of work for the kids and families in detention. And so
that's amazing.
Kaya came to that, and then Kaya invited me to her event that she did, the Children's March, that she asked me to speak on. And then we both spoke on the Families Belong Together rally. And so that's where we kind of met, and we kind of really knew each other then. We knew what we could both do. And then the butterfly effect, I got a call from Kaya. Got a call from her mom. And because we knew each other's power then.
Yeah, so that's incredible.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's hear what that power was like coming from the other side as well. Lillian, I love that story, and I love how both of you, Naniesh and Lillian, have been inspired by your parents. Kaya, how about you? What do you remember as kind of your first mover beginnings in activism, and then how did that take you all the way to the butterfly effect?
I think that my family has always been like a very big community service family, and so ever since I was little, we've been going and like cleaning up beaches and doing stuff like on Martin Luther King Day, and so we've always been doing a lot of service. And then I think that the first thing for me in activism was when I was 6 years old. I decided that I was going to become vegetarian because it wasn't right to be eating other animals, and it wasn't fair to them because they didn't really say, hey, I want to be eaten. They were just like, oh, you just kill me for no reason.
I agree.
And so I think that was my first kind of part in activism. And then as I grew up, I did a bunch of stuff like my first grade teacher did this thing as homework where she had us make blessing bags, which are bags with just like basic necessities for people who are living on the street, like a toothbrush and some snacks or something like that. And so then in third grade and then again in fifth grade, we did that on a larger scale, and in third grade, we raised $2,000 to make 200 blessing bags. And so I think that was like my first very public activism. And then in 2018, then I saw a picture of a kid who was standing there crying while a Border Patrol officer was patting down the kid's mom. And I asked my mom what that was or what was going on there. And she told me that kids were being separated from their families at the border. And I thought that just wasn't right. And I actually ended up crying for like 10 minutes because I was just like, that's not something that should happen. And like that kid was so young in the picture I saw. And so then we decided to do something about it. And I helped to organize a rally at Lake Merritt here in Oakland. And it was part of like a big Families Belong Together thing across the country. And ours was the only kid-led one. And Lily came and spoke there. And one of the things we had there were ribbons. And we had one ribbon for each kid who had been separated from a family member. And so then I was actually inspired by that later for the butterfly effect. And so we decided to make 15,000 butterflies, because at the time that I had the idea for the butterfly effect, there were 15,000 kids in detention. And yeah.
That was amazing. And just, would you finish that story for those listening? You made the 15,000 butterflies, and tell me how that's kind of ended or wrapped up at this point.
So we now have like 50,000 butterflies. We reached our goal a little bit before November 2019, where we held a big rally again at Lake Merritt. And we had a short program where we had kids dancing and expressing themselves and singing and doing speeches. And then a couple days later, we went to DC at the invitation of Senator Jeff Merkley from Oregon. And we had a display of 15,000 butterflies in one of the Senate buildings.
Wow.
And then in DC, we actually did a press conference with Nancy Pelosi and a bunch of other senators and Congress people.
That's amazing. Kaya, Lillian, and Naniesh, I'm so inspired by the three of you and everything that you've done. I want to take this moment because I'm inspired by your origin stories, and I want to get into some of the more details of, what it's like to be an activist. But before we go there, there's been this theme coming up over the last few days here at the summit where all of the adults, for lack of a better word, have been talking about how we need to have a vision of what the future looks like. We need to use our creativity and our imaginations to see what we want to create someday in order to actually make it. Because if we can't see it from here, then we don't know where we're going. So I'm curious this is the Impossible Summit. The idea is that we can do anything. Nothing is impossible. And so if that's the case, if nothing's impossible, I'd be curious to hear from each one of you, what does your vision of the future look like? Let's fast forward 50 years. The three of us are 60s and 70s. What have we done in our generation, in our time? When we look back, we solved what problems? And what's it like to live in the world in 50 years from now? What have we done? Naniesh, if it's okay, I want to come back to you and take a second to think about this if you want. But what does that future vision look like? What problems have we solved in the world, and what's it like to be on planet Earth in 50 years?
Okay. There's so much. This is an exciting question. There's so much that could happen and we could do. And so I guess I'll start with climate change, which is the resolution point, and environmental action and awareness. So in 50 years, looking back, I would like to be reassured that going forward will be all right, or the earth will be all right. And then my Indigenous people as well will be all right and will still be here. Because like at the border and just throughout history and continuing forward today, there's been so much trauma in the Black, Indigenous, people of color, minority groups. And so looking back, I would want to know that the land is healthy, we're healthy, going forward we'll be healthy. Maybe we have some solar panels, gardens, local farmers markets that I get to go shopping at. Yeah. That would be my that would be very nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And if more ideas come up, please, we can start opening this up into more of a conversation, but I'll follow the pattern that we took last time. Lillian, when you think about 50 years from now, you're thinking back, over the course of my life, we did this and now it's like this. And what's that look like for you? What's your imagination tell you?
Yeah. So, I actually thought about this a little bit before. So, well, it's kind of really straightforward stuff, even if it's not even if it's like really big, it's straightforward. So, getting kids out of detention and families, because first they might not really like us when we grow up, because they might think that all of us just don't really care about them, and that we don't. They might think we don't even know about them. And so we want to be able to tell them that there are people out there that care about you, and we want them to we want to be able to be friends with them when we grow up, honestly. And then also climate change, of course, because if there's a chance that if we don't stop it, we won't have a future at all. And that, really, again, it's kind of straightforward. It's a big problem that we have to fix, but at the end, it gives us simple things like going to the grocery store, having gardens. It's simple things that come out of it, but it could change our lives drastically. And so, climate change, detention, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Kaya, how about you? What's your vision of the future look like?
I think for me, I definitely agree about climate change, and that we can't keep working towards making sure that all humans are good if we don't keep making sure that our planet is good. And I think also that for me, I kind of want to see I want to see people stop acting out of desire for things and start acting out of kindness and just being nice to each other, instead of being I want this money, so I'm gonna do this thing to be mean to you, so I become rich and you don't.
Yeah, I absolutely hear that. That shift in perspective and mindset about how we go about the world would be really powerful. I have another question for all of us, but I'm curious, Naniesh or Lillian, or again, Kaya, do you have any other visions about what the future might look like? Ways that the world is different in 50 years than it is today?
Tanya popped a question into the chat, and she's asking, what is your dream for a different way to make daily life work in Alaska without oil/gas money? So, my state is a very big producer of gas and oil, and a lot of the jobs are from the oil and gas industry. So people will come up and work on the North Slope, which is where they pump up gas, or different areas in the state. And then we'll distribute it to the rest of the country and other places. So a dream for the future would be us not extracting oil and gas from the earth, because that's really detrimental to the environment. And it's affecting my people on a huge scale as well. So up on the North Slope, where I'm not from, but I have lots of friends who are from up there, they are taking the oil, they're polluting the land, and then the caribou, which our people eat, are coming and eating the lichen off of this land, and they're getting poisoned. So when we go and hunt them and we eat them, then we are getting poisoned as well. And so there's really high rates of cancer because of this. And more than 90% of one of the communities is all on breathing medications because they can't breathe with the pollution in the air. And so oil and gas just needs to go, especially out of our state, because it's hurting, especially in the Native communities. And so a different way to make daily life work in Alaska without oil and gas. I would hope we could set up solar panels or wind power or hydroelectric on the coast, but also focus in on maybe jobs that have to do with education and jobs that have to do with gardening. So we could have people managing gardens up on the North Slope. There's all this technology that's coming out, and you can grow gardens in the cold or in the winter, or where maybe there isn't a lot of sunlight half the year. And so I feel like there's a lot of different jobs that we could create so that the people who are working in oil and gas right now can switch over and still make an income for their family and still live a happy, full life.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
One more.
Yeah.
Racism. I mean, that's a really big topic, but you know, there's a story like being able to go on a jog, like as a Black person, being able to do what humans should be able to do and live a normal life without having to worry about you getting hurt or someone being rude to you.
Mhm.
Like, that's something that even I, living in Berkeley or in El Cerrito, California, have to think about. And so not having to think about that would just like be kind of crazy, but that would be such an advantage. I feel like we would be able, and we would feel like we could do so many more things without getting hurt in some way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so I want to leave this question open for the rest of our conversation, because I think that dreaming into our future is really important so that we can start to think about collectively, what are we working towards? What are we creating? What's our planet going to look like when we're passing away and passing this world on? But I want to move on now. And again, if you ever have a thought there, please bring it back up. But as I think about these things, each one of you have kind of stopped right before you said your dream and said, it's a really big thing, and these are big things, right? These are huge problems, global issues, systemic things, and they're going to be hard to change. We might see what our vision is, but it may seem like a long ways between where we are now and what that new reality looks like. And so it's obviously going to take a lot of us working together. Now, the four of us are working on, well, Lillian and Kaya, you're working on similar things, but besides you two being a little package, we're all working on different areas, different sub-topics. And maybe it's not easy for us to directly help each other. I'm not flying up to Alaska to be a part of the next protest, and you guys aren't coming down to Southern California to talk about mental health. But that doesn't mean that I don't want your reality to come true. We're all working for that same future. So what I'm curious to know is, how would you like to be supported? Perhaps not directly, but by me or by anybody, young people watching. How can they support you even if they can't directly be with you? Because we all have to work together, right? If I see Lillian, you raised a thumb. Do you have an answer?
It does apply for me and Kaya, but you can go to the Butterfly Effect website, butterflyeffectmigration.org, and there's a lot more information. There's videos on how to make butterflies. So you can see back here, I got a bunch. And we're working on a podcast, and we're working on so many things that to engage with everybody. So that website, butterflyeffectmigration.org, is a great place to be able to find out all about this.
Amazing. Nanyesh or Kaya, how else? Because there's this combination I'm trying to bring up here, right? There's going straight to the website and maybe donating money or donating volunteer time. But, how else can you be supported, if we're all trying to support each other globally? Kaya?
I think that even if you're not like directly supporting like me and Lily's project or whatever, then you can find something that you're passionate about, and you could maybe pair it with something that you like doing. Like maybe if you're really passionate about, or maybe you really like baking, and then you take baking and you say, okay, I'm gonna do a bake sale and raise money for XYZ, or I'm gonna draw a bunch of pictures and write postcards to like my senator or whatever, and tell them like you need to change this, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love that. Go ahead, Nanesh.
And I totally agree with what you just said. It's really important to tie things that maybe aren't as draining as going out on the front lines, or just tie them with something that you love, like baking or making butterflies, origami. For me, it's music and singing and gardening. And finding something that you're grounded in. And there's a lot of ways that you could help support. And I think first step would be really important to get up in the books, get your knowledge of what's going on, because then you could talk to other people about it. You could have conversations, because we need to have more of those. And so find something you're passionate about, research it, and have conversations with your friends or your family. And then the websites, go onto websites. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I hear that. I really hear that. I love this idea of combining, your passions with the work, because the work's always going to be there and it can drain you. And so I'm curious to hear a little bit. I guess I want to, before I get there, I want to start here. There's other young people in the world, and we want them to get involved. And we don't know what's going to get them involved, what's going to light them up. But something got you involved, and you talked a little bit about your origin story. What is the feeling? What's the thing that keeps you going now? Why do you keep going back to what you believe to be right? Maybe why do you believe it to be right? What's keeping you here? What's keeping you driving forward to make these changes? I'll go ahead and call on Kaya. Do you have an idea for that? And you can take a second to think.
I think that, wow, that's a good question. I think that for me, what's driving me is I feel like everybody should be treated with love and kindness. And I guess I'm trying to like go deeper and figure out why I feel that way. And I don't really know why I feel that way, but I think that, like I said, everyone should be treated with love and kindness. And so that kind of keeps me going, knowing that like there are people out there who are having a hard time. And it's like sometimes it's really hard to be having a hard time. And so I'm trying to help them in a way that's not like, oh, I'm taking over your life. And but then also being like helpful if they want help.
Yeah. Lily?
I was gonna say, can I add on to Kaya? I feel pretty much the same way. And I think part of it for me is that, I won't know how it feels to be locked up in a detention center, but I do know what it's like to struggle. I do know what it's like to be hurt. And so, and no one wants that. I don't want you to struggle. It's not good. And so, like, they're kids. There are kids who can't be with their families. Like, like I said, I don't know it, but I can imagine it. And that's just not, you don't want that to happen. You don't want to be taken away from your family. You don't want to not know that you don't have a future, maybe, you know? Like, so it's mostly just like we're kids and we can still see things, but it's just not fair. It just isn't fair at all. And we need to be able to have at least something that's fair, at least something. And this is a big thing. So this could change. This is going to change lives. It's going to change lives, and it already has. Luckily, well, there's still so many lives out there that need to be changed. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of my motivation.
Yeah, I hear that. Really powerful. Naniash, do you have anything to add to that?
So like with what you were saying, Lillian, about how it is to struggle and to hurt. And I think that's really important because I don't know how that feels either. I would never want anyone I know to know how that feels because it really hurts just thinking about it. And I think some of that like empathy and compassion and love for people came from intergenerational trauma that I have. So like being an Indigenous person and colonization, having gone through colonization, and my grandparents sent off to boarding school and beaten for speaking their language, and me not fully knowing my language yet either because some of it has been lost. I think what motivates me is that healing aspect of it as well. So in this process of trying to protect the world and protect these children in concentration camps and protect my homelands and my language, I'm also healing myself. And the motivation, it could be as simple as like me getting to the next day, having done something that I feel really good about, that I feel like will help my people, you, the children in the future as well.
Powerful, powerful, really. Stirring it up. So we have this. Oh, sorry, Kaya, I see your hand.
Can I just add on a little bit to what everyone else was saying?
Of course, of course.
Okay. I think that part of what motivates me also is like I agree with Lily, like knowing what it feels to kind of struggle and to have challenges in your life, and that's motivating because maybe like you're really like you're just all set in life and you've only ever been happy, and you don't know what it feels like to struggle or what it feels like when things get hard or scared or anything like that. And so then you don't feel like you just think, oh, everybody's like this. You don't really think about like, oh, maybe this person's having a hard time. But then knowing what it feels like to struggle at least a little bit kind of motivates me because I know that other people are, I can like empathize a little bit with other people.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's a practice. So I'm curious, as I hear the three of you speak, and we're getting into the meat of why this work is so important, because there is suffering in the world, and we do need to be conscious about that. I'm curious. We're young people. We have a long life to live, and that means we're going to see a lot of suffering. There might be many more hard days before there are many more easy days. I'm curious, how do you right now, or how do you plan to stay balanced so that you are full while you try and fill others' cups, right? An overflowing cup will do it best. Lillian, I see your hand.
I noticed this is something that, at least I know me and Kai spend a lot of time working on, and I'm sure both of you do too. And it's something that, like, a lot of activists, like, they focus their time on what they're passionate about or their cause or whatever it is. But I also think it's important to take care of yourself, because you're human too. And I think you should still have times where you can rest. You still need to be with your family. You still need to be able to have fun, even though this is fun. But, you need to be able to take time for yourself. And I think that's really important, because you do have to fill yourself up, because it does take a lot of work. And so filling yourself up is one of the most important parts, because you couldn't give your best if you didn't fill yourself. So, yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. Naniesh or Kaya? Yeah,
Okay.
Naniesh, please.
So I totally agree with what you just said, Lillian. Lillian speaking facts. Oh my goodness. One after the other. Self-love is so important. It's so important. And for me, self-love looks like hopping on my guitar or my piano and just messing around, or going out into my garden, or even just laying on the grass if I'm really not feeling it that day, and just letting myself sort of melt into the earth and like feel a connection. Maybe when I feel alone or when I don't feel a connection with other people. And family is really important to me as well. And so like going to have a dinner with my family, barbecuing on the porch, just having a good time. Laughter is medicine. Self-love, 100%, and grounding.
I totally agree with everything that everyone has said. Like if you can't take time for self-love, then it'll be a lot harder to reach your goal. Maybe you'll be running out of energy, or you just won't have enough energy if you don't take time for yourself. And I think for me, then taking time for myself looks like spending time with my dog, or sometimes when me and Lily have butterfly meetings, then just part of it is kind of just like making up different things that maybe like won't actually go into the brainstorming list, but like will just be kind of funny, or stuff like that.
I love it. That's great. I'm curious to know about some of your challenges and how you've been able to overcome them. Because as we're talking about this work, yes, loving yourself, but we're still going to hit those roadblocks, those hard days. And have you learned anything about how to overcome some of those sticking points, some of those hard things? What have you overcome, and how have you learned from it?
Wow. There's been a lot of hard points. I struggle with mental health issues as well, so like depression and anxiety, and that can be really difficult, especially when you're trying to make change and you're trying to keep this motivation. And so I guess when I get into a place where I'm not feeling well, then I try and take a step back, because maybe I'm just stuck. A lot of the times when I feel stuck, I try to take a step back, and acknowledging that you're stuck and that you're scared and that maybe you're not in a good place really helps. And then reaching out to someone that you love as well. So for me, my dad is a really good support for me. So whenever I feel stuck, it takes a little bit of time usually, but like eventually I get up the courage to talk to him about it. And so connections are really important to me and how I get through difficult times, whether that's I'm stuck in a bad place mentally, or a kid was bullying me at school, or I just woke up and I wasn't feeling it this morning. So taking a step back and leaning on someone is totally all right. Because all these people who support you and who love you don't just say it for like saying it. They say it because when you need them, they're going to be there to have a shoulder to cry on, to help you in a difficult time, because you won't always be able to get everything right the first try. And that's another thing. It takes multiple shots before finding something that works.
Hmm.
I agree with that. Just saying, I would love to hook up with you sometime. I feel like we could do something good, the three of us.
We're vibing.
Lillian or Kaya, do you want to share about, something you've overcome and what you've learned about overcoming things?
I can go.
Yeah.
I think that for me, I call it having too much empathy, but sometimes I'll just I'll think about something too hard, and I'll think about like, and this is happening, and this is why it's like not fair, and this and this and this, and it'll just make me really emotional sometimes, because I'll just be thinking about it too hard, and I'll be thinking about like yesterday I got a new bike because my old bike is really small, and I felt like I need a new bike. I know that, but I don't really I'm not super excited to get a new bike. And my brother was super excited to get a new bike, and they didn't end up having any bikes in his size, and so he didn't get a new bike. And I was thinking about how does he feel that I feel bad because I got a new bike, even though I didn't want it as much as he did. And then I just think about it. And then my dad was saying that he probably isn't thinking about it that way, where if he had been the one who didn't want it as much, he probably wouldn't have been thinking about she probably, or I feel bad because she wanted one more. And so I just think sometimes I have too much empathy.
I
And
can relate to that, yeah. And I think it's really a good thing. I think it's a good thing to have a big heart, and so I appreciate you for that, even if it's the little things. Yeah.
that's beautiful. Lillian, do you have anything to share on this topic?
Yeah, I think again, self-love and self-care is really important to overcome things. Because the work that at least three of us do is really emotional, families being separated. That's a really emotional topic. And so, like you said, we need to have a family to lean on. We need to be able to have someone that we know and trust, and we can talk to them, adult allies that we can just talk to, because we do a lot of talking with either new adults or kids, and we do need to have friends that we can also lean on, but it's really important to have family. And it's just, I feel like I wouldn't be able to do any of this without love. Because if it wasn't for love, then I wouldn't be able to feel I know how good it feels to be loved. And since some of these kids are so young, there's even infants, they might not even know what it feels like to be loved. And I feel like that's a really big deal. That's a huge part of my life and a lot of people's lives. And so, yeah, overcoming it, just love in general.
find it, share it, seek it out. Yeah, no, I hear that 100%. Really powerful stuff. I want to leave this topic briefly to think about something. We've been talking about your experiences a little bit more now, and your experiences, as far as you're speaking now, have shaped you. They help you think about the world the way that you do. So right now, all around the world are young people who will someday be leaders, who will someday be making decisions that affect all of us in massive ways. And they're all over the world right now. They're your age, they're my age, they're learning, they're in school, they have their own family backgrounds and their own ancestral inheritances to be dealing with. Think about yourself for a second. What is an experience that you've had that has helped shape you? And which one of those would you want one of these young leaders to also have? And how would you like it to shape them? What is something that because you've learned it? And what would you want to make sure that these new leaders also learn before they take charge?
One that I think it's really big, but the butterfly effect went to Washington, D.C., and we met with all of the U.S. senators, and we gave butterflies. We were in the Senate Rotunda. We got to really experience it. And for people who become, for the kids right now who are going to become leaders, I think it's important for them to see what it's like for adults right now who are leaders, because even for me, I was really shocked. You might think of Nancy Pelosi as some really stand-up kind of I'm a leader, you can't talk to me kind of person. But when we went there, and Caitlin from the Alphabet Rockers, Caitlin McGaugh, she had her 4-month-old baby with her, and Nancy Pelosi held her for half an hour. And so I think it's really important to see that these people are human too, and what it's like for them to work in this crazy environment and in the government. I just think it's really important to see how it all works and see how humans interact in that situation.
Yeah, powerful.
Yeah, I totally agree. I was also going to say that DC, and I really agree with Lily about seeing that the leaders of this country are human too, and I met one of their dogs, and that was a really cool experience for me, because it just made me think about they have pets too, and they have they have a life besides being this person on the news all the time. And what Lily was saying about Nancy Pelosi holding my cousin, my brother was actually holding her first, and Nancy Pelosi was just kind of leaning over his shoulder, Caitlin called it grandma energy. I just want to hold that baby. And so it was so cute, and it was kind of it made me open my eyes and realize these people, they're just like us. You see them in the news more often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's lovely. I'll add to this too. We're going to take a little bit of a different turn with this, but the other night I finished reading The Little Prince to my youngest sister, and the message at the end of the book was that, so he was in the desert, the little prince. Okay, so I'm setting a scene, and he's in the desert with this old man whose plane crashed, if you aren't familiar with the book. And they're getting really thirsty. They don't have water. So they're searching this big, vast desert, and the old man is sort of getting frustrated. And the young boy tells him that there's a well. And the old man's like, but where? I don't see any well. And so the boy has to keep reminding him that, there's this big desert, but what you don't see is that there's a well somewhere, and that's what keeps you going. And so it's about the things that maybe aren't visible to the eye, but are visible to the heart, was a moral that I pulled away from the story that I feel like I tend to bring a lot as well. And so even if we're fighting for the children at the border or climate change action, then it has to do with the vision and our hearts and how our hearts see all of this could change and we could all heal. And so an experience that I would want younger kids to have, I guess, would be just as simple as using your imagination. So I know I read a lot of books, and a lot of the times I'll pull away different things from different books. So Alice in Wonderland, it was thinking of 6 impossible things before breakfast was a line from the book that I really enjoyed. So for like the whole week, and I still do this sometimes, where like I'll be walking and I'll be like, I wish that plant could talk to me. And it's impossible, but it keeps your imagination going, and it keeps hope, and it keeps you looking for things with your heart and not just with your eyes. And so to all the youngsters out there, and even adults, keep your imagination flowing and keep that connection to your younger self. Because like I know my younger self, she loves her imagination, and I'm not trying to lock that up for her yet. So imagination.
Beautiful. I love that. To the audience and to everyone that's watching, feel free to start putting your questions into the chat. For the next 30 minutes, we'll be trying to incorporate more and more of your thoughts for our three lovely presenters today. I do have a million questions, so I can do this all day. But I want to think about we're developing to try and change the world in certain ways, and we're putting a lot of our energy and our focus and our time into certain things that speak to us directly and probably affect us directly to try and work on this project. Now, at the same time, we need to be making sure that we ourselves are developing and becoming better, more emotionally intelligent, smarter people who are graceful as we move around the world. I'm curious to know what your thoughts. How are you trying to develop? What are you doing? How are you trying to get better, or what helps you grow, along the way?
Okay. I'll just hop in. So what helps me grow? I love to read, as I've mentioned before. And so I feel like reading is so you get a look into someone else's mind. And there's always going to be some wisdom in every piece that I read, and I'll always be able to pull something out of it. And so reading, going to summits like these, attending and getting able to see other people who maybe have passions that you're also interested in, and taking something away. So today I'm learning about the butterfly effect, and I'll take that away and I'll look up their website, and I'll go on and look up more. And so these are I'm constantly learning. I feel like everyone is constantly learning every single day. And so just keeping that in mind really allows your brain to really soak it all up. Yeah.
Amazing.
Add on to that, I really agree with that, because I was gonna say like school, because learning, we need to have our own knowledge, and it doesn't have to all be about our project. But I feel like school is a really important thing, and it can help you do many things in life. And I feel like it's really just important to stay on top of that. And I know that me and Kai already take time out of school to go to places like this, or to go to DC or stuff like that. And so we still do school. I still had projects to do at school. I still had things that I took on the road, with the kids. And so, but I just think it's really important because that knowledge can help you in different places too. So having all kinds of knowledge is just important.
Absolutely.
I want to add on to like the aspect of learning, because I feel like school is one way to learn, but then there's also like just going out in the world and learning, like going places, seeing things, asking questions. Those are also ways to learn. And maybe you don't like learning in school. Maybe you just, it's boring or something. And so kind of learning just like out in life, like school isn't the only place to learn. And then I think that the other thing that helps me grow, going back to that, I definitely agree about reading. I also read a lot. And I also, I like drawing a lot. So I do a lot of drawing, and I color it in with watercolors because I feel like that's something that I can really kind of make different colors and kind of control how bright it is or how dark it is or how like, I don't know. And then I think drawing and reading and
Yeah. No, those are wonderful things. Yeah, thank you for sharing. So we have some questions coming in from the chat. The first one, and one person can take it. All three of you can share any way we want. Don't feel obligated to share on each question. But the first one is, what can adults learn from our youth? What can adults learn from you? Lillian.
Imagination. Or imagine keeping an open mind. Like, think of the impossible. Everything that we're working on right now, like the Impossible Summit, we're talking about everything that's impossible. I feel like that's really important because as you grow up, your imagination can go away and your crazy mind can go away. You can learn. Adults can learn a lot from kids because we're still in that headspace right now. And so even younger kids who, like, in our group, we have a group of like 15 kids ages 6 to 14. And so it's like even the youngest kids can help us come up with the ideas because they have like their brain is working differently than ours and their brain might even be brighter than ours, like they can still think of so many things. And so I think it's important for adults to listen to kids' imagination and to how a lot of kids have open hearts and open minds.
Absolutely.
I think you said we needed.
Kaya, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think I definitely agree. Like just using your imagination, and I think that in a way, part of growing up, what I've seen is that your imagination kind of gets oppressed a little bit, or you think, oh, I have to keep my imagination in my head. So I think like letting it out and letting it kind of be free and like using your imagination, even if you're not a kid, like maybe you're 60 years old, I still like use your imagination.
Absolutely.
One more thing, actually.
Hey, yeah.
Still imagination, but like even like, I work with my mom a lot of the time. And when we're thinking of ideas, sometimes either of us will say, well, let's think realistically. Let's think something that's probably going to happen. And I feel like it's also important to think not realistically. And so it's important to think like, oh, this is probably never going to happen, but let's try and do it anyway.
Yeah.
So, because then who knows, maybe it's going to happen because you pushed so hard that did. So
Yeah.
like the goal of getting all families and kids out of detention, that's a big idea, and I don't know if it's just going to be us that's going to make that happen, but either way it needs to happen. So like you got to think that big sometimes.
I love it. I have another question here. Do you ever get scared around activism? And what do you do to move through that fear to keep going?
I get scared. I get scared right before I head up onto a stage, whether it's like singing or giving a speech or just welcoming someone else onto the stage. Activism kind of has like a scary, sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's portrayed by the media in a really rough, sort of like aggressive person way. And especially like with Standing Rock and all the news around that and how they were activism, but when they were trying to protect their water source, but they were met with rubber bullets and pepper spray and like threats, really serious threats that the U.S. didn't take action for. They were like, the U.S. was pulling some not cool moves on the indigenous people up there. And so that's really scary. Just like thinking about also the reality that we live in right now is not like, the reality that we live in right now is not for Black, Indigenous people of color. And the world that we live in was built off of oppression, and especially in the United States, and our like genocides and locking children up in borders and sending them to boarding schools. And so it's a scary thought to face, that all of this stems from something so long ago that still affects us to this day. And that's what we're up against. And so activism does scare me. And I get through that by remembering who I am.
Yeah, I really agree with that, because especially for the three of us, like you can tell, like our skin is darker than a lot of people. You know, we look different, and that people look at us different, even if they're not trying to. They still see that. Like they see I am Black. They might see Kaya is Indian. You know, they see us as they see our skin and think differently about us. And so it is scary. Like it really is. I've been scared to be in certain places thinking like, maybe say when we were in DC, like, you know, it's such a political place. Like that was the first time I saw someone wearing a Make America Great Again hat. And that scared me. Like it's like the power that people think they have, or the power that people do have, is scary sometimes. And so walking around can just be kind of frightening, you know.
So how do you get through that, Lily?
Getting to that, I have to remember kind of that I can't just live my life in fear, because that I can't get anything done. I can't make anything stop, because I can't just live under a rock, you know. And so I have to keep my mind open, and I have to I really do just have to kind of push through things sometimes, and know that I'm worth it. I'm worth it, and everybody else is worth it. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Can I go?
Yeah, please, Kaya.
Okay. I think that for me, I definitely get scared, and I think that I'm kind of scared of like there are so many ideas out there. Like there's no really right or wrong, but sometimes I think about like, are my ideas, are they the right thing to do, or like maybe should I be listening to somebody like Trump or like what? But why would I listen to that? But because I don't think that's right. But that's just the way I grew up, and so it gets I get kind of scared thinking about like, should I be doing this or am I right or what is if I do this and then I help these people, what are they going to think? Are they going to think like, oh, thank you very much? Or are they going to be like, we didn't need your help. Like, why did you do this? And I also get scared, like just speaking and kind of being on stage or being there or being like speaking in front of people because I think I'm a very shy kid in a way. And so like one of the reasons I partnered with Lily is because I'm an introvert and she's an extrovert. And yeah. And so you might have noticed that, but in the way that we speak. But I'm a shy kid, and so then I get scared thinking like, what are all these people gonna think? And I'm speaking in front of all these people. What do I do?
Yeah.
And I think the way I deal with that is like I agree with what Lily said, and I think the way I deal with that is that I think about like this has to be done, and or else nothing will change. And then also like you can't live your life in fear.
Naniash, I was wondering if you may have gotten cut off just a tiny bit. You said you remember who you are, and then I was wondering if you had a little bit more to add to that.
Oh yeah. So remembering who you are, and also where you come from. So for me, that's like, it's really, it gives me a lot of strength to think about all that my ancestors went through. So even if it was really hard and it was really awful and it should never have happened, they made it through it, and so I can make it through this.
Amazing. There have been a lot of questions coming through the chat, so I'm just going to read a couple of them and let you choose whichever one you find to be your most favorite. So one, if you could go back to meet your great-great-great-grandparents, what would you say to them? And then another one is, kids are great at playing, but as we get older, we tend to work more and play less. What can we as adults learn from kids about the importance of play? And then the final one, how has the current pandemic changed how you work as an activist? I can repeat any of those.
Can I answer the one about play?
Yeah, Kaya.
I think that the importance of play in life at all is it kind of activates your imagination, like we were talking about earlier, and it may help you like calm down or relax or like go into not like reality, but go into your imagination or go into like a different reality where there are unicorns and rainbows and the world it rains glitter. I don't know. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, amazing. Activate.
Can
Lily?
you repeat the last one more time?
Yeah, the last one is, how has the current situation of the pandemic changed how you work as an activist?
So that one I can answer because when we were getting back from DC, we had planned like so many border trips. And we had planned taking doctors and entertainers and educators and really working with the kids, kind of moving away from actual like the government and moving towards like really focusing on the people, like the detention centers. And we're really going to get to know them and really going to get to just be with them and feel it. And then the coronavirus, COVID-19 came up and all of our plans got canceled. And so now we're focusing on doing workshops with kids and teens and stuff. We're just doing workshops, talking about it, keeping the conversation going. We're working on a podcast about youth activism. And we are working on trying to write a book about the
Wow.
butterfly effect. So we're now really trying to be able to do as much as we can over like Zoom or over like, virtually.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think right now we're mostly just trying to fit in as much as we can until we are allowed to get on a plane and go to a border site and work with the kids again, because
Mhm.
it's still really important and it's still something that needs to happen. It's been a goal for us since the beginning to work with the kids and actually be with them and play with them,
Yeah.
bring them some joy. So yeah, mostly we're just trying to do as much as we can right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
You
Nanish,
guys
do
are
you want to
inspiring.
add?
Yeah. Wow. I want to do a podcast now. This is fun. So yes, we'll talk later. How is activism? How has this work changed? It's changed a lot. Coronavirus just popped up, and now we all have to social distance, and we have to really be extra aware of everything that's going on, because it's a really unsafe time for a lot of elders and people who are immunocompromised, which is a lot of the Native communities in Alaska.
Mhm.
And my other home place, the Navajo Nation, which is also where I'm from, has been hit incredibly hard by coronavirus. And like, I don't know if you've seen it in the news, but it's like it passed to New York the other day. So now it's the
Oh,
most
wow.
contagious place, and we only have like 100,000 people there too. And it's so many elders, and it's really emotional, because the indigenous communities have been hit really hard with disease in the past too.
Mhm.
Like, and so it's re-traumatizing in a lot of ways, and really hard to think about losing all these people. And so I guess I've been focusing on my mental health as part of this coronavirus and as part of my work, because I feel like I am my work in a way. And so I'm trying to learn how to take care of myself, as well as maybe making packages and supporting artists from the Navajo Nation or other places on the border. So I have some Etsy accounts that I like to follow. These indigenous ladies on like the border. They're really cool. They have amazing art. But I have been supporting different artists through apps like that, especially since a lot of people lost their jobs. And those people who lost their jobs are also interested in this work. So trying to support people who have been supporting me because through this rough patch that they're going through as well. And like making care packages and just making sure that to check in on people.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we Kaya, I'm gonna pause you there, just to say that we have a few minutes left, and I think that it's really important that we get this final message out, which is there are young people watching. They may see this recording later, and perhaps they're still on the fence about getting involved. You know, they're like, my life is okay, and I don't really resonate with everything that everyone said. It's not enough to move me. You know, if you have this moment now to say, hey, I really do think that you should find a way to get involved, to make our impossible dreams come true, so that when we do look back 50 years from now, we say, wow, you know what we did over the course of our lives? We changed this and we made this different. And now when we live in the world, it feels good, and people smile at each other on the street, and we're not dealing with racism, and we're not dealing with climate change, and everybody has food on their plate and a roof over their heads because of the work that we did now. We're going to need help, right? So I'm curious, what would you say to another young person right now who's still thinking about whether or not to get involved, about why they should? Yeah, Kaya, I see your hand.
I think that maybe thinking about like maybe your life is good and maybe you think like, oh, I'm fine here. But then if you think about like your future and maybe you want to have kids in their future, um, you want them to have a good life and you want them to be able to be like, I'm not maybe I'm not discriminated against when I walk down the street, or I see flowers instead of trash,
Hmm.
or something like that. Then thinking about that and thinking about like maybe my life's fine, but my future might not be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I can say one thing. Start by reaching out to an adult ally. For the kids who do want to do stuff, start by reaching out to them, maybe talking about what you want to do. For the kids that don't really know yet, start by still reaching out to an adult ally or someone you trust, and talk about what's going on, go deep or maybe not so deep. Like either way, talk about, ask questions. What do you want to know? What do you think might spark you? What do you love to do? Talk about it. And like me and Kai were trying to come up with a name for this podcast. Like we were talking about what inspires us, what is a catchy name? Like, what do I like to say? What feels good in my mouth, Like, and so it's kind of just, you got to be able to feel it yourself. You got to be able to feel good doing it or saying it or whatever it is. And so I think talking about it is the most important part. Just start the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that.
And then, directly to the youth and anyone who wants to get involved. It doesn't have to be youth. You could be, you can be an adult. I don't care. So you can do it. I believe in you, and the world needs you, and you are important. And to win this battle that's happening right now, we all need to work together. And I think we can do it. And so if you're still on the edge, just know that we do need you to make change. And it would be an honor to work with you. So that's all I have to say.
Amazing. This has been just the most inspiring and also calm and grounding conversation. Thank you for bringing your energy and your perspective to this conversation this morning. Lillian, Naniesh, Kaya, I really feel honored to have held this space for you and to have seen all of the things that came up. I just feel inspired myself, and I hope that this sends ripple effects to all of the old and young and everybody on this planet to think about, what are we going to look back on? I feel very confident knowing that the three of you are in the world working. I have few fears about how our future will look, and I look forward to planting the garden when we're all 70 years old and passing the responsibilities onto our children. So let's meet up then, if not sooner. Well, thank you so much. This has been beautiful. And I'd like to call T back up on stage to close us out.
I echo everything that Noah has said. And ladies, while you all were sharing your fierce vulnerability, your beautiful hearts, your incredible wisdom, our chat box in the event side was just blowing up. I mean, as I imagine, I've been eagerly waiting for this day so that I could get some medicine from all of you, because I too carry so much empathy, and I just love how I feel disconnected, how I feel connected to you, and how I feel like you're connected to all the people I love and all the living energy around me. And it just, I think, not only lifted me up, but so many of us. And it was very important for us when we made the Impossible Summit, we had to have our youth. That was something we said, we can't just have some kind of circle without hearing from our young people. It just doesn't even make sense. And I really just honor who you are. Thank you for your blessings. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your fierce vulnerability and your love. Thank you for your path. Thank you to your parents. Thank you to your ancestors. Thank you to your friends who love you. Thank you to all the people that help support you as you go along your path. And it has just been such an honor to spend these 90 minutes in your amazing presence. So wishing each one of you all the greatest luck. I can't wait to see and learn more, and how many more people are now going to get involved just because they heard and felt you. So deep bow from all of us. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's keep doing impossible stuff. Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's just
We're
be
on our way.
unstoppable. You know what I'm saying? Let's just keep it on. Yay. And thank you, Noam. For holding space and just very beautiful. So ladies and Noah, I mean, we'll just close it out. This has been an amazing conversation, and it doesn't stop here. It just keeps going. We're nearing our last day of the Impossible Summit, and later on when we do our presentations, that'll start around 11:15 Pacific time. We've got another Indigenous coming, a beautiful elder, Ilarion Merkuliev. He opened us up in terms of answering the call on Wednesday, and he's going to be sharing messages from the Indigenous elders. We've got Dr. Christopher Tucker. He's going to be talking about ending runaway population growth, starting with empowering women. And we've got Ray Potter, who's going to be talking about reframing our socioeconomic reality from extractive markets to shared prosperity networks. And so, so many of us coming to the table, sharing the food, sharing the medicine. We've just got more of a beautiful day for you. And again, ladies, thank you for really initiating it. It's just been such a blessing. Oh my God, I love you ladies so much. So have a beautiful day, everybody. We're going to sign off, and we'll see you in presentations.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.